If you've ever lived in a college dorm, you know they have a personality of their own. Old pipes make strange noises, doors slam on their own, footsteps echo through empty hallways at night. Most students laugh those things off. They blame the age of the building. Or a roommate playing a prank, but every campus has one dormitory that students avoid talking about, not because it's abandoned, but because people still live there, and according to generations of students, something else does too. Tonight's story is a fictional horror tale inspired by creepy college experiences and late-night dormitory legends shared online. This is Asterisk Tales of the Dark. August 2025, Ashwood University, Pennsylvania. 19-year-old Ethan Brooks had never lived away from home before, like thousands of freshmen every year. He was excited, a new city, new friends, a fresh start. His assigned residence was Blackwood Hall the oldest dormitory on campus, built in 1931. The building had survived nearly a century. The university had renovated the rooms several times, but the long wooden hallways, the creaking staircases, and the heavy oak doors had remained untouched when Ethan arrived. The lobby buzzed with students carrying boxes and suitcases. Resident assistants welcomed everyone with smiles. Parents hugged their children goodbye. Everything felt normal until Ethan collected his room key. Room 214, the woman at the front desk smiled politely. If you need anything, your resident assistant is assigned next door. She pointed toward another key hook. Room 215, his name's Ryan Foster, but he transferred last week. Ethan looked confused. So who's replacing him? The woman hesitated. We haven't assigned anyone yet, so the room's empty, she nodded. For now. Ethan thanked her and headed upstairs. Blackwood Hall somehow felt older than it looked outside. Every step across the wooden floor produced a soft creak. Portraits of former university presidents lined the hallway. Most had faded with age. Some seemed to watch students as they passed. Room 214 sat near the end of the third floor. Room 215 was directly beside it, a brass plaque still read, R.A. The lights above the hallway flickered briefly. Ethan unlocked his room, small, simple, one bed, one desk, one closet, one large window overlooking the campus courtyard, perfect. The first day passed quickly. He unpacked, met his neighbors, shared pizza with students down the hall. By midnight, everyone had settled into their rooms, exhausted. Ethan climbed into bed, his phone read, 2:12 a.m. 1 minute later, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks echoed through the wall beside his bed. Exactly where room 215 stood, Ethan opened his eyes. Someone was probably moving furniture. He rolled over. Silence returned. The next morning, he mentioned it to another freshman. Did you hear someone knocking last night? The student shrugged. I was dead asleep. Classes began. Days passed normally. Ethan quickly settled into campus life. Everything about college exceeded his expectations, until the second night, 2:13 a.m. knock, knock, knock. Exactly 3 knocks, exactly the same rhythm, exactly the same wall. This time, Ethan checked the time immediately. 2:13. He waited. No more sounds followed. The next afternoon, he visited the housing office. The room next to mine, the old RA room. Is someone staying there? The employee looked at the computer. No, it hasn't been occupied since Ryan transferred. Maintenance, not this week. So nobody should be inside. She smiled politely. Correct. That night, Ethan stayed awake intentionally. His desk lamp remained on. A movie played quietly on his laptop. The clock slowly changed. 2:12. He stared at the wall. 2:13. Knock, knock, knock. The sound was unmistakable. Not loud, not violent, almost patient. Ethan immediately stepped into the hallway. Empty. Every dorm room remained closed. Room 215 stood directly beside him. Dark, silent. He walked over, pressed his ear against the door. Nothing. He tried the handle, locked. A voice suddenly interrupted him. You hear it too? Ethan jumped. A girl stood several doors away carrying laundry. She introduced herself. Emily, room 221. You've heard the knocking? Emily nodded. Since last semester. Ethan frowned. You never reported it. She laughed nervously. Everyone reports it. What does housing say? They blame old pipes. Ethan looked back toward room 215. Does it happen every night? Emily's smile disappeared. No, it only happens at 2:13, before Ethan could ask another question. She quietly walked away. The following evening, he searched the university library, old campus newspapers, archived student magazines, historical photographs, anything mentioning Blackwood Hall. After nearly an hour, he found a newspaper clipping from 1998. The headline read, "Resident assistant found dead inside Blackwood Hall." The article was surprisingly brief. 22-year-old Ryan Mitchell, no signs of forced entry, no official cause released. Room number 215. Ethan stared at the page. That couldn't be right. The housing office had said, Ryan Foster. Not Mitchell, different person, different year. He photographed the article anyway. That night, the knocking returned. Knock, knock, knock. This time, it didn't stop. 3 knocks, a pause, 3 more, then again. Over and over, students began opening their doors. Confused voices filled the hallway. What is that? Who's doing this? A frustrated student finally pounded on room 215. Knock it off. Instant silence. Everyone waited. Nothing happened. The students returned to their rooms. Ethan stayed outside, watching. Nearly 5 minutes later, the hallway lights flickered, one by one, until only the light above room 215 remained on. Then, the door handle moved very slowly. Ethan held his breath. The handle turned halfway, stopped, then returned to its original position. The door never opened. The next morning, campus security arrived. 2 officers unlocked room 215. Ethan watched from across the hallway. Dust covered every surface. Furniture sat beneath white sheets. No personal belongings, no signs anyone had entered for weeks. One officer smiled. See, empty. The second officer closed the door as they walked away. Ethan noticed something on the inside wall, visible only for a split second before the door shut. Someone had written the same numbers, over and over and over. 213 * 213 * 213 *. That evening, Ethan couldn't concentrate. Classes became a blur. Every glance at a clock made him anxious. By midnight, he sat awake in complete darkness, waiting. His phone changed to 2:13 a.m. Nothing happened. 30 seconds passed, still nothing. Ethan slowly relaxed. Maybe it was finally over. Then, knock. Knock, knock. The sound didn't come from the wall anymore. It came from inside his closet. The knocking stopped. Ethan sat perfectly still. His eyes never left the closet door. The room was completely silent again. His heartbeat echoed louder than anything else. Knock, knock, knock. This time, there was no doubt. The sound came from inside the closet, not the wall, not the hallway, inside. Ethan slowly reached for his phone. 2:13 a.m. His hands trembled as he switched on the flashlight. The narrow beam illuminated the white closet door. Nothing moved. He swallowed hard. Every instinct told him not to open it, but another part of him needed an explanation. He stepped closer. The knocking never returned. His hand wrapped around the metal handle. He counted to 3, then pulled. The closet swung open. Clothes, shoes, a suitcase. Nothing else. He searched every corner, every shelf. Nothing. Relieved, he laughed nervously. I'm losing my mind. As he reached to close the door, his flashlight revealed something scratched into the back wall, small, almost impossible to notice. 3 words, don't answer IT. Ethan froze. He hadn't written that. The wall had been clean when he unpacked. He immediately backed away. Just then, his phone vibrated. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Hello, only static. Then, 3 slow knocks echoed through the speaker. Knock, knock, knock. The call disconnected. His phone screen went black. The next morning, Ethan barely slept. He skipped breakfast and went straight to the housing office. This isn't funny anymore. I found writing inside my closet. The housing manager frowned. What writing? Ethan showed her the photograph. Her expression changed. I'll send maintenance and security. Within an hour, 2 maintenance workers removed the closet shelves behind the drywall. they discovered something unexpected, an old wooden service door hidden inside the wall. The workers exchanged confused looks. One of them muttered. These old dorms had maintenance tunnels. The hidden door had been painted shut decades earlier after forcing it open. A narrow passage appeared, barely wide enough for one person. It ran behind every room on the third floor. Campus security searched the tunnel. Cobwebs covered the floor, no footprints, no signs anyone had entered for years. Then one officer stopped. Over here, a wooden chair sat in complete darkness, facing a small square opening. The opening looked directly into room 215, the abandoned raw room. Beside the chair lay an old cassette recorder, covered in dust. The officer pressed play. Static filled the tunnel, then a young man's voice. "If someone finds this, my name is Ryan Mitchell. I've been hearing the knocking every night. It always starts at 2:13. I thought it was another student. I was wrong." The recording paused, heavy breathing, then 3 familiar knocks. Ryan whispered, "It's inside the walls." The tape ended. Nobody spoke. Security collected the recorder as evidence. That afternoon, Ethan searched university archives again. This time, he found Ryan Mitchell's student file. Resident assistant, Blackwood Hall, room 215, declared dead, October 17, 1998, cause of death, undetermined, but one sentence caught Ethan's attention. Campus police responded after multiple students reported knocking inside the dorm walls. Exactly as Emily had said, that evening, word spread across campus. Students gathered outside Blackwood Hall. Some laughed, some demanded room changes, others insisted the stories had always been true. Emily found Ethan sitting alone in the courtyard. "You found something?" He nodded. The old Ra left a recording. Emily looked terrified. "My older sister lived here. She told me never answer the knocks." Ethan frowned. "Answer?" Emily nodded slowly. "She said one student did." "What happened?" "No one ever saw him again." Before Ethan could ask more, his phone vibrated. Unknown number again. This time, he didn't answer. The phone stopped ringing. Exactly 3 seconds later, knock, 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 the sound echoed. From inside his backpack, he slowly unzipped it. Nothing had moved. His books, laptop, notebook, silence. Then his roommate rushed into the room. "Ethan, were you knocking?" "No." His roommate's face turned pale. "I just heard it. Coming from under your bed." Both of them looked down. Darkness, nothing else. Neither of them checked. That night, campus security assigned an officer outside room 215. If someone was playing a prank, they'd finally catch them at exactly 2:13 a.m. Every hallway camera suddenly lost signal. The officer's body camera continued recording. The footage later showed him standing outside the empty room. Knock, knock, knock. The officer looked toward room 215, then toward Ethan's room. The sound seemed to come from both at the same time. The officer slowly opened room 215. Empty. He turned back into the hallway. Ethan's door was standing open. No one had opened it. The officer entered carefully. "Ethan," no answer. He swept his flashlight across the room. Everything looked normal until he reached the closet, the door. It was already open. The officer aimed his flashlight inside. Nothing. He turned around, then stopped. The body camera tilted slightly. Someone was standing behind the closet door just outside the flashlight beam, tall, motionless, wearing an old resident assistant jacket. The officer shouted. The camera fell to the floor. Static filled the recording. When backup officers arrived less than a minute later, the room was empty. The officer had disappeared. There was no struggle, no blood, no broken window, no way out. Only 3 fresh knocks echoed from inside the wall. The university immediately closed the entire 3rd floor. Students were relocated. Room 214 and room 215 were sealed permanently. Officially, the university blamed structural damage. No mention of the missing officer. No mention of Ryan Mitchell. No mention of the hidden tunnel. Months later, Blackwood Hall reopened. New students moved in. Most never questioned why one section of the 3rd floor remained locked behind a steel security gate. Years passed, the story slowly became another campus legend. Then, one evening, a freshman uploaded a short video online. He had been filming a dorm tour for his parents. Everything looked ordinary, until viewers noticed something at the very end of the hallway, behind the locked security gate. Stood a young man wearing an old resident assistant jacket, watching the camera, perfectly still. The student insisted. No one had been standing there while he was filming. The video quickly disappeared, but copies still circulate online. Some people slow the footage down frame by frame. Because just before the video ends, the figure slowly raises one hand and knocks 3 times against the wall. If you listen carefully, you can almost hear it. Knock, 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 if you are brave enough to hear more nightmares. Subscribe to Tales of the Dark, and if you have your own terrifying experience, leave it in the comments or send your story by email. Maybe your nightmare will become the next story told here.